Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports.
Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports with Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval.
What's that? Is that the Chicago Bears fans' tears, or is that rain and hail coming into State Farm Stadium? What's going on, everybody? Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval here for another edition of Cardinals Corner. And yes, if you were at State Farm Stadium, you experienced some weather today, and you experienced a Cardinals win 29-9 over the Chicago Bears. Lauren, how we doing? I want to talk to you about this because you were actually in the elements, even though that shouldn't be the case in a domed stadium, but you were. So you were front and center for the game in the stands. Set the scene for me, not only the weather side of things, but just give me the rundown, because it looked like a very, very heavy contingent of Bears fans.
Yes. So it's the first game in a long time that I didn't go to work. Mm-hmm. I went to just enjoy and be a fan and be in that stadium environment. And it was easily 3-1. Bears fans walking around, people chanting, yelling things about the Bears, everybody that is sort of interacting with each other being Bears fans.
Yeah.
I mean, easily 75% of the stadium. Luckily, when it did start to hail, my seat was not in the hailstorm, so I was protected. But there was a weird moment where sort of everybody around us was collectively like, what is that? What's on the field? What's coming down from the stadium? Oh, is that hail? Has that ever happened before? And then I texted you and I was like, have you ever seen it rain inside of State Farm Stadium?
I don't think that's ever been the case. Maybe there's been a couple sprinkles in it, but and it's funny because in our message or like work message group, I was like, there's some dark clouds over the stadium right now, and they are leaving this thing open. And then 2 seconds later, it starts coming down. And from the press box, I'm like, man, it's raining hard. And then I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah,
it's bouncing off the ground.
Yeah, what are those little white things down there on the grass? I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, the Bears fans got a little taste of Soldier Field.
Yeah, we tasted the elements. I did turn to the people I was with and I was like, okay, I think this is Advantage Bears. Mm-hmm. There's elements, there's weather happening right now. I was wrong, but yeah.
Way wrong. But yeah, 29-9, huge game for the Niners. They were on a bye this week. I'm looking at the NFC West standings. We'll get to that. Don't know why I said that. But yeah, Cardinals 5-4 now. 3 wins in a row. You stay on top of the NFC West. Huge showing. And one of those games where I think a lot of us is like, if you're going to be one of those contenders, if you're going to try to be a playoff team, you've got to win these types of games. And not only Bears hadn't give up more than 21 points. They gave that up 29.
Yeah.
Like they finally, I think everybody kind of saw the Bears were trending down, and I think that Hail Mary kind of sparked that a little bit. But I do want to ask you, because we kind of talked beforehand, so Matt Eberflus, does he stick around or does he go?
He goes. And he has to go. He has to go.
That's rough.
Because he is the leader of this defense. He's the head coach, but he's really a defensive-minded guy. He comes in, you have the number one defense in the league in the Chicago Bears. You have the Tyreek Stevenson incident of last week against the Commanders. Didn't start today, and walked out of practice on Wednesday. Reporting from Courtney Cronin, the ESPN Bears reporter, said that he walked out of practice Wednesday morning. He later returned to the practice field and did practice, but was very upset about the benching, which makes sense.
Yeah.
He's also playing a position of need for the Bears right now. As we discussed, they had Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon out for this game, so they needed Tyreek Stevenson to play well. And I think that this sort of defensive meltdown from the Bears in a way where we've seen them hold teams to under 21 points. We've seen them force turnovers. They did force a few missed catches. They forced the ball out of Marv's hand. They did have the one turnover. Yeah. That was all impressive, and that was sort of the classics of a Bears defense. But you saw them just hanging their heads, walking around the field and being there. It's a totally different element when you're looking down at the sideline like, wow, you were really hanging your heads and you really look upset about it. And I think that the defense is what saved this offense early on in the season. When Caleb wasn't clicking, you could rely on the defense to kind of cover up those scars and bruises there. And this game was an instance of where the defense couldn't save the offense and everybody looks a little checked out now.
Yeah, and the offense really couldn't save themselves either.
No, and the offense hasn't been able to save themselves a lot this season. I mean, we ran through the stats in the preview pod. Caleb is the hottest thing you've ever seen, or absolutely freezing cold. And so that's when they've relied on their defense to save them. And so I think Matt Eberflus needs to go, and I also think OC Shane Waldron needs to go.
I don't doubt. I agree with you with Shane.
Yeah.
I think Eberflus has another game or two. That's where I'm at. I don't think it's happening now.
No, and I don't think it's happening now because of his relationship with Bears GM Ryan Poles. They're close. They've gotten along for years and years and years and have great football ties. And I think because of that, Poles is a little bit more reticent to let him go, but should.
Yeah, I think I saw Poles in the press box today.
You did. Yes. I got a lot of photos from people who work here. Like, look who's showed up in the media box. And I texted all of them, go tell him to fire Eberflus.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all three phases stepped up. Where do you want to start when it comes to the Cardinals?
Let's start for the Cardinals defense.
Okay, defense, 6 sacks, season high, easily the best at this edge rushing group, and I would say front seven has looked all season. Like, not even close. They came to play against a Chicago Bears team offensive line that they should have done this. Like, yeah. I don't want to like minimize what happened, but also this was the game of like they better get like 3 sacks. This
is the game where you go, if they don't get 3 sacks,
and stuff's really wrong,
then there's a problem here.
And it's great that this all happened, and we will talk about this a little bit more as there's only 2 days left for the trade deadline and how this might impact that thing. But that was really cool to see, especially for a guy like Xavier Thomas, who I think had 1.5 sacks today. First full sack of his career, so big shout out there. I think Zaven had 2. Really, really strong showing there. I mean, across the board, and talking with JG, I mean, he talked about it. Everybody played up to their role. That was the biggest thing. It wasn't, because like, what was the biggest wholesale change? I don't think there really was one. They just, everyone came to play. Like, every down, every play, every snap, they knew what their assignment was. And yeah, some misses were there still, but at the end of the day, I think that was a really strong showing, and I continue to love what I see from the young secondary. Garrett Williams continues to stack games. Max Melton is starting to get comfortable out there, and that's huge. Sean Murphy-Bunting didn't play again. Why not roll this same lineup out next week, even if Sean Murphy's back? Work him in, obviously, because you got to play the guy. You paid for him. But I don't see a world, like, I can see a world where it's these young guys are stepping in and being the starters now, where it's Starling Thomas and it's Max Melton and it's Garrett Williams getting the job done, with Sean Murphy-Bunting being a fill-in. I don't know if we're going that far yet, but I can see that being the case this year. I can see that kind of passing of the torch happening right now. Yeah, and I think Garrett Williams looked the best of that bunch today by a decent margin. That whole group performed pretty well against the Bears. Some of that on Caleb and his major accuracy issues today. But when he was accurate, it still felt like the Cardinals secondary had the upper hand against some of these wide receivers, and that was impressive to see, because it's something that I don't know what level this secondary would perform to against a more offensive, talented team. I think back to before we started the pod, I was like, I'd love to see this Cardinals team play the Bills now. Because I'd love to see what they could do. Like, the Bills have figured it out. I mean, today they nearly didn't. They almost lost to the Dolphins today. And they didn't really have it figured out. But it's the kind of thing where they're obviously like a top 5 team in the league right now, the Bills. And so I'd love to see this Cardinals team that finally feels like they're coming together, they're finding their identity with these young players, play a really stacked offensive team like them. Yep. And I think flipping to the offensive side of the ball, well, let's take defensive one more time. Point differential. I think that plays a big part in this one. They got 20 points back today. Like, that's huge. They were minus 27 entering the game. Now they're minus 7 atop the NFC West. They are, which, wild. There's only one team that's plus right now, and that's the Niners at plus 28. The fact that the Cardinals are in first with that kind of point, and it should, I'm going to think it's going to continue to go in the right direction next week against the Jets, because don't know what's going on there.
I don't think the Jets know what's going on with them either. I mean, the win against the Texans on Thursday night, also they're coming off a longer rest period.
Yeah.
The Jets coming in here, they have a few more days to get right.
It still feels so weird.
I know. And they were favored on that Thursday night game against the Texans. And I look up at Vegas and I'm like, what? What do they know that I don't know? And then the Jets go and win it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know where Aaron Rodgers is and I don't know where this Jets team is, but that's for later this week.
He's not in a dark retreat right now. Offensively, though, I got to give a shout out to just the running game because they brought it. James Conner, I want to say James led the way because he had another 100-yard game, but the young running backs behind him really impressed me with Trey Benson scoring and Amari DeMercado ripping off that 53-yard touchdown, which should have been like a setup for a field goal in the second or the first half, but instead he just chews up that 53-yard touchdown. So huge days for those guys. Obviously, DeMercado more than Benson has been around, has been used in pass pro a lot, has been a part of this offense, but I liked that he got to actually get the ball in his hands and actually get to take it to the house. So I know JG was really amped about that. I think he told them that he was giving them grief this last week about hey man, when are you going to take him to the house? And so now he's like, yeah, he's probably going to come do that to me now. So I really like that. And the one thing that I really liked about this offense is that it once again flipped. They didn't need to have Kyler go out there and win the game. Kyler had 150 something yards, nothing crazy at all. They just focused on the run game and got it done, as opposed to last week when they said, Kyler, go win this game for us.
No, exactly. They didn't need Kyler to be spectacular. And he wasn't spectacular today, but
he wasn't bad.
He wasn't bad, and he didn't lose them the game.
Exactly.
He went out there and he wasn't even game managing. He was just performing to a baseline level that we've...
Let your playmakers do what they can do.
Exactly. And that's what it felt like Kyler sort of leaned into this week. We talked about it a lot on the preview pod, that if they could get the run game going, that's what this Bears defense falters in, is the run game. And it really felt true in the second half. It was just run play after run play after run play, picking up that chunk yardage and even breaking a few runs free, at the end of that first half for that touchdown. Like you said, should have been just setting them up in field goal range. Instead, it ends up being a touchdown, monster of a touchdown for them. And that kind of energy in that run game really helps set up the rest of the offense, because once again, not a stellar receiving day for anybody.
Trey McBride led the way with 35 yards on 3 catches.
Yeah.
On 4 targets, and that 4th target should have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
Wide open. And Kyler knows it. He knows.
Yeah.
He said it. He after the game, he was like, oh, I know.
Well, good, because he was wide open in the back of the end zone. It was one of those moments where at home, you're like, oh, my God. But then at the stadium, it's everybody around you saying, oh, my God.
That ball's not coming down. It's still going. Oh, that's way out.
No, not even close, buddy. But that being said, they didn't need the wide receivers to do much today.
No, and they even made some of their pass catchers be running backs, like Trey McBride, who finally scored a touchdown in 2024. And even Kyler's yeah, he does, because it was brought to us. Yeah, he still doesn't have a receiving one. Then he was, we got to get that changed. So Trey obviously still getting in there, but yeah, gets a rushing touchdown, 2-yard rushing touchdown. I think James Conner was like, yeah, he's still working on it. We're still working on him as running back, but yeah, he liked what he saw there. So that was really cool to see. And then special teams, Greg Dortch, I think, really was the spark that gave this team to lead to this Trey McBride touchdown. Greg Dortch set them up with a really good punt return that I think really kind of woke them up a little bit after trading punts back and forth. I think they had 2 each before finally breaking through with the touchdown. So shout out to them. Chad Ryland continues to make a case to be a long-term kicker here.
Do you think he's a long-term kicker right now?
I think it depends on what Prater wants to do. I think he's got enough respect to that if Prater's going to come back for at least 2 more years, they keep him around. But if he's heading towards the sunset, maybe you do look at hey, here's the heir apparent. You clearly can tell he's gelling with these guys. You clearly tell the team likes him. So very interesting there. It's continues on, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon just because he's being successful. And then you got Blake Gillikin. I think he's had 11 punts, and 9 of them in the past 2 games have been inside the 20.
Special team showed up today. Yeah. Just giving the offense the upper hand. I mean, that's really the role of special teams, is to sort of set your offense up to be successful. And that's what they
pin that defense back.
Exactly.
And the other.
Exactly. Yeah, I knew what you meant. Exactly. But just make your team feel more comfortable, give you the upper hand, especially with the new weird kickoff rules and where does it have to land. I think everybody's mind went to that at the beginning of the season. JG even talked about how does that impact their role and who do they set back as their returner? Are they going to start to move that role around? We've seen a few separate people do that role. We saw a few separate people do that role today. We saw DJ Dallas out there. We saw Greg Dortch out there, and they'll find success in their own way.
Yeah, DJ Dallas got a huge shout out by JG today too. He had some shin injury he's dealing with, but he came back and ended up playing. But yeah, he's like, this guy, like, all these running backs get their credit, but this dude does it, and he's an unsung hero for what he does in special teams games. So they love him. They love the energy he brings there. So you just tell this team's gelling. You could tell JG he kept it together, but you could tell he was amped. Every time somebody would ask him a question that I think he liked that he got asked, he just took the biggest swig out of a bottle of water and gave you like a minute and a half answer. Like he was rolling.
That's how you know that he's ready to go, because he's normally very short, sweet with his answers. He loves to talk about insulin and his insulin levels.
Eating candy and spiking insulin. And
Exactly. So having him sort of pivot off of the sort of fun, nonchalant conversation and be like, all right, let me give you an in-depth answer on why I did that was a nice turn of showing that things are going well in the locker room too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of cheers in that locker room, and for good reason, because defensive coordinator Nick Rallis has welcomed his second baby to the world. So congrats to him. Really, 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 really. I think it's cool. I think it's I'm gonna work on a story this week, so be sure to keep it on ArizonaSports.com. Bring it to you there. His kid's middle name is Kaiser.
I saw that on social media and genuinely did not know if it was a joke.
Oh, I asked JG after. I said, so what's up, man? Like, just tell us, did he lose a bet or something?
Yeah.
Like, was this between him and Kaiser? And JG like just gives me this big smirk and goes, Kaiser's a good name. And that's it.
Okay.
So there's got to be more to the story.
Yeah.
I got to dig. We'll talk to Ross on Tuesday, but congrats to him. I think it was this morning. I think they had it all planned.
Oh.
Did it this morning or... Yeah, I think that's what JG told us.
Are you guys going to exchange parenting advice? You now have babies born within just a few weeks of each other, and both of your second kids?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So yeah, I should pass that along. Maybe get him some pacifiers or something to welcome the new one.
Pass him along some pacifiers. You going for something there?
Yeah. Pass rush.
Oh, his favorite kind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, shout out to that. That was really cool. Apparently, though, Zaven Collins told us that Rallis didn't tell anybody about that until like after the game. Like Collins, like, I didn't know until they told us after the game he got a game ball. He's like, Rallis is about football. That's what he's about. That's what he wants to do. And Zaven's like, that's why I love the dude. Like, he's just about ball. Like, that's a huge moment. And he decided to keep that away from everybody and not say anything until, like, I think JG probably said it. Like, incredible. I mean, it's cool. It's really cool. And it's that coaching staff, they just love ball, because he's not the only coach to have a kid this year. He's not the only coach to have a kid and go to the game like hours after the fact. Spencer Whipple was right there. I think Patrick Toney had a kid recently too. So I don't know exactly how that all went, but I know Spencer Whipple had a kid, I think the night before or the day of another home game. Mm-hmm. So all of that just crazy.
Yeah.
But that just shows you again the level of how much these guys are accountable and how much they really care about what this football team is doing on a daily basis. Like anybody else, you're saying, okay, take over, JG. You've called the defense before. Take it over one more time. But yeah, so really cool thing with Rallis there. But I do want to turn to NFC West standings now, because things are still tight, but not as tight as they were a week prior. With Cardinals are now 5-4, a full game lead over the Rams, over the Niners. You've got the Seahawks at 4-5 now, so still very much tight.
Yeah.
But huge 9 weeks in. Like, no, let's be real. There's not many of us that would have thought they'd be at the top right now.
No.
I think we thought they'd be competitive. Mm-hmm. I don't think we'd say top of the NFC West.
And I don't think anybody could have predicted the way that the rest of the division looks right now. I mean, today's Seahawks-Rams game. Overtime. Rams figure it out with a long touchdown there. And it was sort of a, who are we rooting for?
Yeah, no, really.
Who are we going for?
tie.
Who do we? Yeah, like a tie. Who's gonna win this game and then maybe lose the next few games that they play? You start to look around at that. You start to dive deep into the schedules of the other teams in their division. The 49ers on a bye week this week. Their schedule for the rest of the season.
One of the toughest.
One of the toughest in the NFL. So definitely something to keep an eye on
What
there.
about the Cardinals? Where are they at? One of the easiest.
The easiest.
I think 31st.
I think it's the easiest.
Let's
okay.
go look at updated.
All right. Here, we can make it as safe as possible by saying one of the 2 toughest schedules left in the league.
They're actually 30th now from Tankathon.
Oh.
As of today.
All right. Updated standings, everybody.
The Niners, number 4. Seattle has moved up to number 11. So that's something to watch too. I think they were 14 a week or two ago. And then you've got the Rams. Where are the Rams at? Rams, where you at? Oh, Rams are 27 now. So they're got a little bit of an easier one now.
Yeah.
I think they were 24th last week. But yeah, I mean, there's a roadmap. There's a roadmap there. And I don't think a lot of us could have seen that beginning of the season. Obviously, Niners are going through a lot of injuries. You've got the Seahawks. You've had the Rams who have gone through some injuries and bouncing back. Seahawks are... I don't know what to say about the Seahawks right now.
No. And for the first time in forever, it seems like the Cardinals are not the most injured team in the NFC West.
No.
I feel like for season...
Even with all the injuries they have.
Exactly. Like, they're still not the most injured.
Or maybe they're just figuring it out.
Even
They're
with the
rolling
injuries.
With the punches a little bit better than these other teams. All right, so with that, though, who would you pick as the most threatening team? Who's most threatening to take that place over the Cardinals at first?
The Rams.
Yep.
The Rams.
Yep.
My gut still sort of wants to go, 49ers. They're so hurt.
So injured.
And their schedule is so difficult the rest of the way.
And they do find it, and they figure it out later in the season. Like that's been a common trend. I don't know exactly the numbers, but I did see a graphic the other day where it's like start out 2-4 and they end up still going to the playoffs. Like there's still plenty of games left, but it just feels like they're 1 or 2 injuries away from just packing it in.
Yeah, and just going, hey, the trade deadline's coming up. How can we get rid of some cash left on our roster these days? How are we going to figure that out? That being said, I sort of thought the NFC West a few weeks ago, or you could even have argued last week, was going to be the team that wins the division is going to the playoffs, and then the other 3 aren't.
Yeah.
Like, it's either you win the division and you're in the playoffs, or you're not going to the playoffs at all. Yeah. Depending on how the Cardinals finish this up, depending on how the Rams finish this up, even the Seahawks, I mean, I don't know what to think of the Seahawks right now, but they could put 2 teams in the playoffs if things start to click for the rest of the team. I mean, we'll see what happens around there, and especially with this trade deadline coming up. Yeah,
I still think NFC North has got a lot of wild card spots in there, at least 2.
Yeah, 2 or 3, depending on what happens. I don't know.
I don't think the Bears are making wild card now.
No.
But
No.
Minnesota and Green Bay are right there. They're gonna.
Green Bay lost to the Lions today, but once again, that whole league has. I think there's only been 2 or 3 in division games for that specific NFC North region. I know the Bears haven't played anybody in that division.
6 total. Yeah, nothing from the Bears.
Yeah.
Lions are 2-0 in the division. Minnesota's 1-1. Packers are 0-2.
See? Got to play each other a lot of times. So it'll be interesting to see how they start to split those games within their own division. If that starts, 5 weeks from now, we're sitting going, okay, if they split this and then these teams do this, how's that going to impact what the rest of the NFC West looks like?
Yeah. Oh, man. We just talked about the point differential for the Cardinals. The Lions are plus 110.
Oh, the Lions look like they are clicking on all cylinders. And considering the fact that they lost Aiden Hutchinson and still have figured it out, I mean, their secondary, too, has looked fantastic today.
Ryan Branch got ejected, though, today and threw the double birds I saw.
Oh, yes. I saw that trending on Twitter. If you want the wallpaper, one of the Lions beat reporters has pulled it and made it available for your iPhone wallpaper.
Oh, it's so good.
So that's out there. Yeah, Kirby Joseph with another pick 6 against the Packers today. So they are really, I mean,
Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it though because it's the Lions.
I'd say Lions and Bills.
Lions and Bills.
Right now, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
I think Ravens maybe could sneak in there. I just think Bills they're still, even with the close one today.
Where do you think the Chiefs are?
The Chiefs are one of the worst undefeated teams I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's true.
Easily.
That's true. I think Patrick Mahomes is putting together one of his worst seasons in the NFL.
I know he is because I'm on my fantasy football team.
Everything comes back to your fantasy football team. Yes.
But no, like seriously, I really think that when they get in the playoffs, I just don't see them competing up to the level that the Ravens or the Bills are at right now. That's just where
the Bills have to break their playoff
curse. They know what they're
curse.
doing. Andy Reid knows what he's doing, so can't ever write him off. But I just think right now they don't look at the confidence level that they have, even being undefeated, is lower than what they have been when they won the Super Bowls. So that's where I'm at. But okay, let's wrap it up. NFL trade deadline, 2 days away. Do you think this game did enough to tell Monty that he doesn't need to go get a pass rusher or a defensive lineman? Or is this the stepping stone of, okay, I need to get on the phone right now and get somebody?
Okay, I'm going to pivot that question ever so slightly into what I am concerned about could happen. Yes, I think this game shows you that you are capable of competing because you've gotten through your gauntlet of a schedule where we've discussed all season long how the first half of your schedule is way tougher than the second half. And now you're sitting here looking at your record and you're going, okay, we got to do something. We've got to make something happen. What I'm concerned about is that they get Darius Robinson back here next week. Yeah, next week, maybe the week after. Right around.
Yeah.
I expect him back either this week or next week.
After the bye.
Yes. So we'll wait to see what happens there. But I'm a little worried that he comes in and they go,
there he is.
Here's your guy. Here's who we went and got for you.
Fired.
A guy who hasn't played football. By the time he steps back out on the field, it's going to be almost a year. At least almost right around there.
Yeah.
Depending on when he actually steps back out onto the field.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie. And I mean, we had high hopes from Marvin Harrison Jr. We haven't even talked about this podcast, and he did not look good.
No, he did not.
He had a fumble and he had the ball push. I mean, it was late in the game and it didn't matter, but he had it stripped right out of his hands.
Yeah.
I'm point of that being, I don't think you can call bringing in a rookie you solving your issues.
No, yeah, and like we said before, it's the Bears O-line. The Bears O-line is one of the worst O-lines, and they were banged up too. They were supposed to get half of the 6 sacks they got today, in my opinion. Like, that needed to happen. That was the baseline for today. No, it doesn't change. It should not change. The win, how they won this game should not change what they need to do at the trade deadline. They need to go and here's the thing too. Everybody's like, okay, Azeez Ojulari, that would be awesome. I think it'd be a great addition, especially with his brother already being here. Arden Key, both those guys have been reportedly linked to the Cardinals in some way or another by Diana Rossini, I believe. But at this point, it doesn't necessarily need to be one of those guys either. I don't think. Bring in some depth. Don't have it to where, and nothing against Ben Stilley, but don't keep elevating guys off the practice squad to fill in prominent roles. Bring in some depth from elsewhere that is proven that can come in and do it.
We haven't discussed it a lot on this podcast, but I'm interested in just your view of giving up draft capital to get a more sort of proven guy.
That's the other thing too.
Would you do it? Because this regime seems so hesitant.
I think I would do it if it. Here's the thing, and this is. I think Monty wants somebody that has at least another year on their contract, not a 1-year rental, especially if you're giving up draft picks. And it cannot break this. It can't break the bank. I know they got a ton of cap space, but we clearly see that they like having all that cap space. They like the wiggle room. Are they going to use a lot of it? I don't think so. But you look at it, you've got a guy like Azeez. He's entering unrestricted free agency. Do you want to pull the trigger on that and maybe say, hey, that brother connection, maybe he sticks around, maybe we get a cheaper deal on an extension? Like, you look at that, that's really interesting, but you also, and he wouldn't I don't think he'd break the bank as much as some other guys would. But
I mean, they weren't interested in bringing in back Hassan Reddick because they knew that they needed to sign him to a new deal and they didn't want to do it.
Arden Key, not quite the production as Ojulari this year, but has another year. So you get him for next year too. This is a 9-point-something cap hit, though. Do you want to spend that much on a guy who is at 3 sacks right now? I mean, really, probably what you got right now.
Yeah.
So it's really an interesting toss-up of how this is all going to play out, because there's so many factors that you think, yes, draft picks, keep as many as you can, shell out older one or later ones, and that's it. Don't go to like top 4 rounds. Don't even touch it. Beyond that, I just think it's really going to come down to fit. I think that's going to come down to fit more than anything, and it's really going to come down to what's Monty going to do? Like, what's the pro that he's going to say that's going to outweigh the con for me? Because no deal is going to be perfect. Somebody's going to overpay for somebody this draft or this deadline for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Pass rusher everybody wants pass rusher right now. Somebody's going to overpay. And I think we all know that Monty's not a guy who's going to overpay, especially for free agent talent or trade talent. He likes the draft. That's where he's going to build his stuff. So I'm just really interested to see how this all goes.
Hopefully we're sitting down for a midweek like preview pod / trade deadline pod. Yeah, we can talk about something.
Yep.
Because I'd like to see them make some move. Because if they don't make any move, I then start to question just how serious they are about building on this current team, and if we aren't already looking towards the future.
Yes. All right. Well, I think that about does it. Another win for the Cardinals, 29-9 over the Bears. We'll be back tomorrow. Arizona Sports app, ArizonaSports.com, and 98.7 for all of your Cardinals coverage and every other sport in the Valley and Arizona that you need to get. So that's where you can find it all. You can find us on YouTube, everywhere you listen to podcasts. You can follow me at TDrake for Sports. You can follow Lauren at Colville_Lauren. Follow the show at AZ Cards Corner. And yes, back tomorrow. We're back on the grind to see if Cardinals can begin their quest for 4 in a row against a Jets team that, I'm going to tell you right now, should be a 20-point blowout. But that's me. We'll talk about it more later this week. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.